Yo family, welcome back to another Destiny 2 build guide on the channel. Today we are hopping in to discuss Arc Warlock build and the ever-going conversation of which exotic goes best for an Arc Warlock build. On the one hand, we have people who love the Geomag stabilizers because of the incredible things that it does for the Arc Super. Obviously, I think it has got even better this season, so yeah, there's that thing to consider. But then we have everybody else discussing what is best between the Crown of Tempests or the Fallen Sunstar. Now, for those people who think that Crown of Tempests is a better overall exotic for PvE builds, that's fine guys, I'm not toxic, you can have your opinion. It's an incorrect one, but you are entitled to it. Nevertheless, we're not a dictatorship around here. So I'm here to tell you guys Fallen Sunstar is the best overall exotic for Arc builds for Warlocks, for one of many reasons which we're going to get to as we jump into the video. So guys, if you are looking for an Arc Warlock build which has damage reduction, which has ridiculously quick uptime on bolt charge, which has near continuous abilities at all times, which has very fast supers, then you've come to the right place. You will not find a build that allows you to spam Arc abilities to have bolt charge and supers back quicker than this does as an overall does it all build. So at this early stage of an episode or season, it's pretty difficult to actually test this in a good variety of scenarios and harder difficulty content, you know, to be able to give a real picture of how good it is in endgame. And I have been testing out a lot of builds, so by the time I got around to testing this one, the lost sector of the day was actually the Thrilladrome on Neomuna. Now this isn't the most difficult lost sector and it isn't the longest one either, but it was difficult for this particular build, as you can see, with all the gaps to jump over at the boss part at the end and everything like that. But I was actually a good 23 levels underpowered for this, so what I was trying to show is the fact that the abilities come back ridiculously quickly. They're almost continuous, that you've finished one and you've got the other one back and vice versa. So you've got that, then you've got obviously the bolt charges, they are coming back ridiculously quickly as well, and because you're spamming out so many abilities, this is going off all over the place, which again is fantastic. And so I've tried it out, like I said, 23 under in Lost Sector, and I have also, you will see a bit of gameplay, tried this out solo in the Expert Nether. So before we hop into the build setup itself, let's just talk about the actual build mission here, what we're trying to do. Obviously, as I've already mentioned, it's fast supers, it's ability spam, it's having those abilities to hand at all times. The main way that we're going to achieve this is through Ionic traces. Now, as far as elemental pickups go for the different subclasses, Ionic traces is one of the most powerful. One single Ionic trace when created will give you 12.5% grenade energy and melee energy and 15% class ability energy as well. And this is where our exotic Fallen Sunstar comes in. Fallen Sunstar's intrinsic perk is called Ionic Conductor, and it says Ionic traces you create move faster and grant you additional ability energy. To be specific guys, it actually doubles the ability energy we get. So this now means that we get 25% grenade and melee energy and 30% class ability energy for every Ionic trace that we make. Not only this, it also says nearby allies also gain ability energy when you collect an Ionic trace. So allies within 15 meters of us receive 10% energy for all three of their abilities every time we get an Ionic trace as well. So not only is this fantastic for yourself because you're able to spam those abilities, you're also supplying your teammates as a support aspect with additional ability energy as well. Now, the other reason that we can amplify this and take this one step further, despite there being multiple options we'll discuss later in the video, is the exotic trace rifle Coldheart. This has an intrinsic perk called Cold Fusion that says this weapon shoots a steady cold fusion powered arc laser, dealing more damage the longer it remains on a target. But it also has a trait called Longest Winter, which says periodically generates Ionic traces while in its high damage state. So the reason that I've picked this weapon as the standout pairing for this build is because, as you can read from the wording of Longest Winter there, you don't even require kills with this weapon. Periodically damaging is going to create Ionic traces, so you don't require kills, meaning this will work on elites, champions, subjugators, tormentors, bosses, you name it. This is going to work, and you're still going to be able to create those Ionic traces in order to give yourself back that enhanced ability energy, so it doesn't even require kills. So that is why that is going to be my pairing and my recommendation of weapon and exotic for this build. Feel free to tinker how you want though. Any arc weapons will be good with this build, but that is an Ionic trace printing machine, so obviously that is going to be fantastic for this build, and you'll see that in the footage. So let's move into talking about our subclass setup. So for the super, I'm going for Chaos Reach. In my opinion, it is the best super. You can use it for Ad Clear if you want to, but also has very good single target damage as well. There's no reason why you can't use Storm Trance, but I think that Chaos Reach is better in terms of this build. In terms of rifts, Healing Rift is my recommendation, but if you really wanted to go for Empowering Rift, you can. Jump is going to be completely your choice, as is the melee. So Chain Lightning is going to allow you to jolt targets, and while you're amplified, it's going to create additional chains. But I prefer the Ball Lightning just because it has extra range and it creates additional lightning strikes before detonating when you are amplified, which we are pretty much always going to be. Again, you'll see this in a lot of the arc builds that I'm doing or will be doing or have done already, but I really enjoy the Flashbang Grenade because of its blind capability. This allows us to stun unstoppable champions, but also disorients enemies for 10 seconds, meaning that they can't attack us or use abilities. So we then have our aspects. The first one is going to be the brand new Ionic Sentry. This says that getting kills with kinetic or arc weapons or arc abilities charge up an arc turret that periodically chains lightning between nearby targets, granting a stack of bolt charge with each hit. And as you throw this out as well, it again creates a blinded effect, which also does the same as the Flashbang Grenade. We then pair this with Electrostatic Mine. Defeating targets with arc abilities or defeating jolted or blinded targets creates Ionic Traces, and collecting an Ionic Trace makes you amplified. So this is going to help because now we're going to have Ionic Traces coming from all of our ability kills, plus the weapon that we've already discussed. So this is a must-have. This pairing together as aspects is really, really good. For our fragments, we're going to be taking Spark of Shock. This is going to allow our grenades to jolt targets. So not only is the flashbang going to blind targets and stun unstoppables, it's also going to have the capability to stun overloads because it's now able to jolt as well. We then have Spark of Frequency. It has some increases to our reload speed and stability, but the main thing we're looking at is while we're amplified, the effects are increased and we gain increased stacks of bolt charge from all sources. So if you get one, you're going to get two. If you get two, you're going to get three, etc. So every source we have of increasing our bolt charge is going to be increased by this, which is fantastic. We then have Spark of Discharge. Arc weapon final blows have a chance to create an Ionic Trace. Collecting an Ionic Trace grants a stack of bolt charge, but as we know from what we've just discussed, Spark of Frequency means that we're going to get two. The reason that I'm taking this, if you were going to ask that question, considering that I said that coldheart was already an Ionic Trace printing machine, the Ionic Traces start printing when it goes into its high damage mode. What this does is means that we've got a chance of creating an Ionic Trace at any point from the weapon, and as you'll see, this does create an absolute ton. And then finally, I take Spark of Resistance. While surrounded by combatants, we're more resistant to incoming damage. This is a 25% damage reduction, and this will also stack with the fact that we get 15% damage reduction whenever we are amplified. In terms of our armor mods, for the helmet, we are stacking together two arc siphons. This is going to allow us to create orbs of power whenever we are getting rapid weapon final blows with arc weapons. And then a special ammo finder. I mainly use the coldheart as a primary weapon, so this is going to allow us to keep the uptime on that by creating some more special ammo. For our gauntlets, I take double impact induction. Causing damage with a powered melee reduces your grenade cooldown. For me, the grenade is one of the more important parts. It applies jolt and it also obviously does that blind as well. So this is really helpful, especially in situations where we have champions. And then I take a momentum transfer, which completes that loop back the other way. Dealing damage with the grenade is also lowering our cooldown for our melees. For our chest piece, we're just taking a couple of resistances to match the activity that you're doing, plus I take an arc reserves here as well so that I can carry more ammo for the coldheart. Again, if there's something that you'd rather do here, you can switch that out. It's just to keep the most ammo I can, like I said, so I can use this as if it is a primary weapon. For the boots, I'm taking recuperation for health from orbs, absolution to reduce all of our ability cooldowns, and then also orbs of restoration. When we pick up an orb, it gives an amount of energy to our lowest ability that we have. And finally, for the class item, I'll be taking Reaper, so whenever we use our Rift, we're also going to then be able to spawn an orb after our next weapon kill. We're having Powerful Attraction, which is going to collect up all of the orbs when we cast our Rift. And then finally, because we've leaned more into the grenade abilities with our other mods, I'm going for an Outreach, which reduces melee cooldown when using our class ability. So we're trying to fill in that loop, guys, of having obviously our Rift, our melee, and our grenade all coming back as quickly as possible. It doesn't make too much difference, though, if there is something that you really wanted to make sure you fit on here, because like I said, the amount of energy that we get from all the Ionic Traces that we're getting pretty much does this job job for us anyway. So you could even think about going with something like a special finisher to replenish that ammo as well. And quite honestly, if you feel like you're getting enough ability back as it is, you could always go for some surges or something on your boots as well, instead of all the ability regen stuff that we have going on. In terms of your stat distributions, you're going to want to go for a 100% resilience. This is going to hit that 30% damage reduction, which also stacks with the 15% from amplified and the 25% from spark of resistance. So it just gives us a little bit more of that survivability or tankiness in harder difficulty content. You then want to get your recovery as close to 100 as you can. Obviously, getting that close up gives you the lowest cooldown on spamming your rifts as you can get. And then after that, I would go for discipline. So pretty obvious, but those are the main 3 stats, and those are the main 3 I would focus on in that order. In terms of weapons for your primary, this isn't going to be a completely free slot, entirely up to you. Depending on what I've been doing, I've either been going for a weapon which has Demolitionist on it, so I've been using an Adamantite with Demolitionist and Hatchling on it. Just a little bit of extra damage from those Shredlings, and of course Demolitionist is going to help us build back up our grenade as well even faster, but again, completely not required. I've also been using something like the Supremacy for anti-barrier when I've been in something that has barrier champions, so this kinetic slot is completely free for whatever you want to use. If you wanted to use something like a grenade launcher or something like that, you can use whatever you want in this slot. In the energy slot, like I said, Coldheart I am basically using as my primary weapon because it creates so many Ionic traces. This feeds back our abilities so quickly. But you could use something like Lodestar, you could use Delicate Tomb, you can use anything that's hot right now in the arc category, but just know that Coldheart is definitely going to be the best pairing for this build. It's a pretty fun weapon to use, and like I said, it's satisfying just to see your abilities charging up so quickly and being able to use them. In terms of your heavy, you're just going to want to take something again that is arc, just to take advantage of everything that we have going on with bolt charge, etc. The Watchful Eye machine gun from the Nether activity is going to be really good. You can get perks like Jolting Feedback or Rolling Storm on this, which are going to be very good. If you are not using an exotic in your energy slot and you're switching it up for damage, Thunderlord of course is pretty crazy right now, so they are some pretty good options there for you to use as well. In terms of the seasonal artifact, nothing that we're doing relies on this, it only enhances it, so this build is still going to be good going forward when the seasonal artifacts eventually change. But you can pick up Overclock and Load, which says while you are amplified or have bolt charge, arc weapons gain increased hand and reload speed, again nice to have. Dielectric, defeating arc debuff targets grants bolt charge, again that is going to feed into the build that we have going on, as well as Flashover. When you gain maximum bolt charge, you also become amplified. Lightning bolts deal more damage, and then you could also pick up something like Defibrillating Blast from the last column. Stunning a champion grants maximum stacks of bolt charge, triggers an arc bolt that heals you and jolts combatants that it damages. And then if you are using a fusion rifle within your build, obviously I would pick up Particle Reconstruction because that extra damage is just free right now. So in terms of build loop, guys, it is very simple. You're going to want to use that Coldheart as much as possible to start printing those Ionic traces that feed into your abilities. Whenever you have Overload or obviously Unstoppable champions, you can throw out the Flashbang Grenade to prioritize them because it will stun them and jolt them. Again, if there are no champions around, you can still use this the same way. It will blind big groups of enemies and also jolt all of them as well. And whilst you're doing all of this, getting these ability kills, you're also going to be building up your Ionic Sentry. You can throw that out again on impact, this blinds, and then it will start to chain that lightning, which is going to grant us 2 stacks of bolt charge per hit because of its synergy with Spark of Frequency. And then at the same time we have Electrostatic Mind, which is also going to be creating Ionic traces from arc ability kills, whilst our Coldheart is generating it from its own weapon damage. And that essentially is it, guys. Throw your abilities, use your Coldheart to build up those Ionic traces and replenish your abilities, throw out your Ionic Sentry whenever it's built up. You're going to have bolt charge going off as well, and then whenever you get that Chaos Reach, use that whenever needed because you'll be able to get that back really quickly from all the ability spam that we have going on. If you have any questions or you want me to explain anything else about it, guys, let me know down in the comments below. Otherwise, feel free to join our community Discord if you want to get access to the build links before I post them to YouTube, or you want to share any build links of your own. And also, if you enjoy hanging out in live streams, we will be streaming again as of this coming Tuesday's reset, 8 PM GMT or your equivalent time zone, and that's twitch.tv/IamSideQuestSam. Thank you as always for watching the build today. The link for Dim is pinned in the comment down below, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.